Marketer of the day, number 411. Get your health right. Set a morning routine in place for optimal sleep, eating, movement, productivity, and happiness with Dr. Michele Summers. Hey everyone, and thanks for listening. We're talking right now to Dr. Michele Summers Colon, and she's the author of Body Wisdom, 10 Weeks to Transformation so you can get and feel healthy again. And she's the creator of the podcast Body Wisdom with Dr. Michele. And she's also a physician, an Ayurvedic health coach, yin yoga and anatomy instructor, and a motivational speaker offering workshops and online courses based on her books. She hopes to inspire women to live happier, healthier lives that honor their bodies, wants, and desires. So, Dr. Michele, glad to be talking to you.
Thanks, Robert. I'm glad to be here.
So, this whole thing about, staying healthy, keeping your body in shape, it's one of those things where, it's harder to do as you get older in the years. And then a lot of us, entrepreneurs, internet marketers, we're always sitting at home all the time. So it's hard to get out there. So, and you always hear about all these crazy percentages about how the obesity levels getting, higher and higher and life expectancies kind of not what it should be, things like that. So, do you see this whole staying healthy? Do you see it as a big problem among solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, or is it just something to keep in mind?
Well, it's a good question. I actually see it across the board, but it is a special problem for entrepreneurs who are sitting at their computers all day because we're not really getting up and moving around as much as we should. So I think there's different issues for different groups of people, but I think across the board, it's a problem.
Okay, yeah, and I definitely, I went through the sort of phase of, I went through the college years, and after college got a job, didn't like the job, built the business on the side, got to the point where I quit the job, and those first couple of years when I quit the job, where I was sort of nervous, and I was making sure to wake up early and put in all kinds of hours to build the business. And then maybe 2-3 years in, I had a couple of, I don't know what you call it, but just like lazy sort of years. And the money was still good and my business was growing. But those were the years where I maybe wasn't eating as well as I should, when I maybe, slept in till 10 or 11 as opposed to waking up at 5 or 6 in the morning. And I didn't exercise, and it was just the mood swings were rough, and it was sometimes tough for the creativity and keeping things going. And so those first few years were sort of rough. And so, do you see this sort of thing with people where maybe there's just they kind of get comfortable, they get complacent, they rest on their laurels, and then this whole getting unhealthy thing isn't something that happens overnight. It just kind of happens just on its own, just from sort of getting comfortable. Do you see anything like that happening?
Yeah, and I think it's just our habits. We get into a routine of, sleeping in later, going to bed later, not getting up and moving our body and exercising. And so we get into this routine, and it's just one habit reinforces the next one. And before you know it, that's our routine. And so it's very common. And that's why when I work with people on these issues, we start really small. We take really small baby steps to changing those behaviors and changing their habits so that their new habits become part of their routine instead of those old habits.
Okay, it sounds like a great way to do it, because you always hear about people who they let their health get bad enough where they say, okay, great, I'm going to throw out everything in my fridge. I'm going to start running 5 miles a day. And when you see people do that, at least when I see people do that, it lasts a couple of days. It doesn't even last the whole month. It's like from one extreme to the other. And so I'm really glad that you mentioned that you start your clients on these small baby steps. And so do you have any examples of just really quick things that you have your people do just to kind of start to get back on track? Just those really easy initial steps?
Yeah, so I think if you're just starting out and you want to focus on a couple things at once, not too many things at once, and like you said, not doing too big of a drastic change, like throwing everything out in the fridge and running 5 miles a day. So we want to look at our sleep, we want to look at our eating, and we want to look at our movement. So let's just work on those three things and forget everything else for now. So if we look at our sleep, we want to start going to bed at a certain hour. And I know with entrepreneurs, people are night owls, people like being on their computer late, but what that's doing is really messing up our sleep cycle. So starting to bring our bedtime back a little earlier and just starting to change it by 15-minute intervals. So let's say you're going to bed at 1 in the morning and we want to try to get it closer to 10 p.m. And so that's like a huge gap. So that's not going to happen overnight. And the reason that we pick 10 p.m. is because, from an Ayurvedic perspective, we want to be in rhythm with nature. We want to be in rhythm with the sun and the moon cycles, where energy, creativity, and energy is at the highest at certain times of the day. And that's when us as entrepreneurs want to be really focusing our time on our businesses. So to get back in rhythm with that, we have to start going to bed closer to the 10 o'clock hour. So if you're someone that goes to bed at 1 a.m. or 12 p.m., 12 a.m., you want to start bringing it back by 15 minutes. Do that for a week. Anyone can change their bedtime by 15 minutes. It's not hard to do. Your body will adjust to that easily. Once you've done that for a week, the next week, 15 minutes again. So by the end of the month, you can be going to bed a whole hour earlier than you're used to going to bed, and your body's not going to feel such a drastic change, and you're not going to give up. So that's an example of one of the baby steps that we take with sleep.
I love
We can
it.
do,
And
yeah.
also, and real quick, one thing that that I wish someone had told me years ago was to bring back the bedtime as opposed to the waking up time, because at one point, things had to change and I started waking up early, but I would just kind of go to bed at the same time or not really have much of a bedtime, and then I'd set the alarm for 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and those couple of weeks were really, really rough because I was adjusting the wake up time and not the bedtime as you just instructed.
Yeah, so one of the really important concepts with Ayurveda is to, when you want to have a good tomorrow, you start with today. So we want to plan to have a good day tomorrow by adjusting our bedtime today and adjusting our dinner time and what we're eating today. That's what's going to cause us to wake up and feel great tomorrow. So if we're eating dinner at the right time, which by the way happens to be 6 o'clock, and again, for people that are staying up late, maybe they're eating dinner at 8 o'clock. So we want to start bringing our dinner time back by 15 minutes, just like we do with our bedtime, because you want to have a 4 hour gap between when you eat your dinner and when you go to bed so that all of your food's digested before you go to bed. And the reason we do that is because you're going to have a much more deeper sleep. You're not going to be wasting energy on digestion when you're sleeping, because that nighttime energy needs to be for rejuvenation and repair of cell damage, creating new cells, all of those things that cause us to wake up in the morning feeling fresh and energized. So we want to bring our dinner time back by 15 minutes, get it closer to 6 o'clock, bring our bedtime back, try to get it closer to 10 o'clock. And so those are some of the things we want to do the day before so that tomorrow we wake up feeling great.
Awesome. So get that bedtime closer to 10 o'clock, get the dinner closer to 6 o'clock. And so you mentioned that those baby steps fall in the categories of there's the sleep, there's the eating, and the movement. So is there anything else we need to know about eating as far as those baby steps go?
So one of them, that I just mentioned, was the dinner time, and the other thing would be that we want to have our biggest, heaviest meal for our lunchtime meal, because that's when the energy of the day is at its peak for digestion. And so our bodies are built this way so that we have more energy to digest our food around 12 to 2 o'clock. So most people do eat their lunch in that time, so that's usually not a problem in terms of the time frame. But what we see is a lot of people eat a light lunch and then they'll eat a heavy dinner. And so we want to switch that. We want to make our lunch our biggest meal and our dinner a lighter meal, like more on the salads and veggies and small proteins, not the big heavy dinner. So that's another thing we would do with our food. And then when we get to the movement part, for people that haven't been exercising at all, and I know there's some people that haven't exercised in years or months, we don't want to start them off with something too crazy, because then they're just going to fail and they're going to give up. So if you haven't exercised in, like, say, 6 months or a year or more, we're just going to start you off on 5 minutes. Now, anyone can do 5 minutes. You just do 5 minutes of jumping jacks, 5 minutes of jogging in place. You don't have to go to the gym. You can do it in your own home. Anything you can do for 5 minutes, even if it's for a dance break. Some people just do a dance break. Um, and then once you do that for a week, then you're going to increase your time to 8 minutes, and then you're going to go up to 12 minutes. So the goal is to get it up to 20 minutes, and that could be accomplished within about a month or so.
Awesome. So just like the sleep, where you do it in little increments, you do the same thing with the movement. So that way you're not, you don't go and do a bunch of running and you throw up and waste a bunch of money on the gym. None of this extreme stuff, just sort of baby steps, getting more and more into it.
Yep.
Well, great. So you work with someone and you get the sleep pulled back. You get the dinner a little earlier. You switch to lunch and the dinner. You get them to get to the point where now they're exercising in one way or another. 20 minutes. What's the next step after this?
Then that's when we start looking at the morning routine. So you mentioned one of the things that you did was starting with adjusting your wake up time. And the way that I'm talking about doing it, we start with the bedtime. So I'm glad you brought that point out. Now that we've gotten those first couple of things under our belt, now we start adjusting our wake up time. And we want to try to aim for getting up at 6 a.m. Again, that's when the energy is rising for creativity, and that's when we want to get up, we want to get started on our day, we want to start getting to our business after we've done a couple of other things in our morning routine. So it's really important that we get our sleep dialed in first before we start trying to wake up so early.
Okay, so do the sort of crawl before we run, and then and for
Hmm.
so for the morning routine sort of stuff, like I'm glad that we're talking about this because like I kind of slowly piled in like a few things at a time to the morning routine, but I've begun to get bored with it. Like I wake up, I drink a bunch of water, different instructors and people said to like meditate or journal, but I never was able to really stay up with that. But I'll wake up, I'll drink a bunch of water, and I'll go out for a walk, and I'll make sure that I have at least like an hour and a half just early in the morning without any of the noise, any of the chaos, just kind of going on a walk. But I've noticed that lately I've become really bored with it. Like, when I go for a walk for 30 to 60 minutes and I kind of have some similar walking paths and things like that, but I feel like I've kind of used them all up. And sometimes I do running, but for the most part, like with this morning routine stuff, it just kind of feels like maybe I don't have enough variety in it, or I'm just kind of feeling like it's bored. Like I'm always kind of almost going through like the day-to-day grind every morning. Have you experienced this, or do you see this kind of thing happening with people just kind of getting bored with the morning routine?
Yeah, I've seen that when people get stuck in the same type of exercise routine in the morning. So you're doing all the right things like waking up early, having your water, going to the bathroom, and then, moving your body and doing your walking or your running. And I've seen that when people start doing their walking or their running, they do kind of sometimes get bored. And that's when you have to start switching up your exercise. So one of the things that we do in Ayurveda is we talk about having softening and hardening exercises and switching things up. So one day you're going to do a soft workout, let's say that's a walk. The next day you're going to do a run, or you're going to walk one day and the second day you're going to do weight training, or you're going to walk one day and the second day you're going to do a HIIT workout. Something that's switching it up from day to day, from soft to heavy, so that you don't get bored and so that you're using all the different muscle groups. And a lot of people just do running, for example, and they're because they want to get that cardio in, and that's great, but they're not using all the other muscles that we want to start working on. So we got to start switching things up, and that's going to keep people from getting bored and giving up.
Okay, so it can be just as simple as just have like just every other day, so a soft day and a hard day, and just alternate like that.
Hmm.
All right, great. So, I mean, there you go, problem solved, right? So, I'll walk in one day and the other one do some running or some kettlebells or things like that. And so, when you work with people to figure out the morning routine, like, do you just like how do you go about that? Do you like give them like a template and then change it up, or do you assemble it a piece at a time? Like, how do you figure out with someone what their morning routine should be?
Yeah, first thing we have to do is figure out, what are they struggling with in their health, to see what we need to work on. Because some people, like I said, haven't been exercising at all. So we got to start really basic. Other people have been working out, but maybe they're at a plateau, or maybe they've been working out, but they haven't lost any weight in 2 years. And so we have to figure out what's going on with them that we need to switch things up. And sometimes their workouts are great. It's just that their sleep is off. And if you're not getting enough sleep, that causes weight gain. And a lot of people don't realize that. So sleep deprivation can cause a lot of problems like diabetes, weight gain, all kinds of other stress related issues in your body, high blood pressure and things like that. So sometimes it's just a matter of figuring out what it is that they're struggling with and what they're doing with all their other parts that we already talked about. And then we start working on their morning routine. And the last part about it that I forgot to mention it when we talked about the exercise is making sure that people are doing things that they like to do. So if someone hates running, I'm not going to recommend them to walk one day and run one day because they're just going to hate it, they're going to dread it, and they're probably not going to do it. So we got to find out, what are the exercises that you love? Is it yoga? Is it running? Is it cycling? Maybe you need to go to a spin class. We just have to figure out what they love, especially in the beginning, because that's going to keep them motivated to do it. So that's another part of it.
And just out of curiosity, maybe to play devil's advocate a little bit, have you ever come across someone where you said, "Oh, well, you find an exercise you like, do a yoga, or running, or a cycling." Have you ever come across someone that just said they don't like to do anything?
Yeah, that happens. There's some people that say they don't like to do anything. They don't want to exercise at all. And those are the people that, we have to say, okay, then we're just going to do something really simple like jogging in place or jumping jacks, because there's really no activity that they're going to really want to do. And then once they start doing it and they start feeling the benefits of exercise, like their breathing is better, they start losing weight, they start feeling more energetic, that actually causes them to like get more curious and want to try doing more things.
Okay, great. So even if they say they don't want to do swimming, they don't want to do anything, just jumping around a little bit, they see some of those initial results and then they get curious to do more.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned a few times about this Ayurveda thing, and I've seen this word come up a bunch, and I think I had to like speak it out for some kind of video or something for a client once. So I've heard of this term thrown around, but I have to admit I don't even know what it means. So can you kind of fill us in and fill me in, especially because I always hear it thrown around, but I'm not exactly sure like what people are talking about when they talk about this Ayurveda stuff.
Yeah, so Ayurveda is basically Indian medicine. So it comes from India. It's the oldest form of medicine that's documented. It's over 5,000 years old. And basically, what it is really looking at people as individuals. There's no cookie cutter routine like, okay, you have high blood pressure, this is the medication you need. It's not like that at all. So it's very different than Western medicine. So everyone's looked at as an individual from their body, their emotions, their food. And so it's really about bringing everything back into balance. So there's like an Ayurvedic theory that when we're born pretty much healthy, pretty much everything's in balance. And as we grow older, things get out of balance because of stress, because of a busy lifestyle, because of sitting at the computer all day, whatever it is that causes us to, start having issues later. So Ayurveda looks at what those issues are, looks at the whole picture, and then starts recommending different types of foods and herbs and movement and meditation and things to bring everything back into balance so you can be back in your state of perfect health.
Okay, great. And it sounds like, so did I hear you right in that it's sort of customized based on each person?
Yeah, exactly.
So how is that customization done exactly?
So we do an initial assessment, and there's a couple different exams that people can do. You can even do a couple of them online to find out what your body type is. So in Ayurveda, your body type is called your dosha, Dosha, and you can take a dosha quiz online. The Chopra Center has some, and Banyan Botanicals has some, but you can Google dosha quiz, and basically it'll ask you a bunch of questions like, do you get angry easily, or do you get irritated quickly, or do you get, does your body tend to run hot or cold in temperature? Is your skin dry, or you sweat a lot? Different questions like that kind of tell us what your body type is and what your personality type is. And it usually falls into one of three categories. And so based on those categories, we can start looking at, okay, because you're this type, all of the individual things that you're dealing with fall into these different groups, and we can start customizing a plan based off of that. So it's figuring out what your body type is, and then individually figuring out what your issues are that's caused you to get out of balance from what you should be.
Okay, and so once you kind of merge, you figure out the body type, the personality type, and then combine that with the goals they want to achieve, the things they want to fix. What is the end result of that? Is it like now like a customized like meal plan or exercise plan, or by plugging these things in, what information does that give you?
Yeah, it definitely can tell us a meal plan, an exercise plan, and all of the types of things that we need to start doing with each particular person to get them back to feeling the way that they should feel.
All right, super cool. And this is making a lot of sense to me, especially because, you say like, you have the sort of the low-hanging fruit, the things everyone needs to do to get their sleep right, their eating right, and their exercise right. But then what's great about like this method you just explained, and also the way that you work with your clients, it's like there's the low-hanging fruit side of things, but then once that's out of the way, it's never really one size fits all. It's, based on the person, based on where they're at now, and based on what they want, the actions then change. So it's like there's the fundamental part, and then there's the customized part afterwards.
Right.
So when people are trying to get from where they are now to where they want to be, so like if they're maybe they plateau it up to this point, or they let their health go and they want to get to that finish line, and you work with them, do you see like along the way people having like a really hard time or failing at some point? And I mean, what's really the hang up? Where do people get stuck, or where do people have difficulty when they're on this journey and they're trying to get somewhere?
That's a good question. There's a couple different things that I've seen when people get stuck. Sometimes their old habits just start creeping back in because that's just natural. We're human. And so we have to start looking at, okay, what fell off track? Is it your sleep? Is it your exercise? Did you stop working out? What was it that fell off track, and get them back on track, even if we have to start at square one with their habit. That's one thing. Another thing that can throw people off is travel. When you go, on a business trip, and, we go to a lot of conferences as entrepreneurs, being in a whole different setting, not having your same home routine, being able to work out the same way, not having all your same foods, having to get up at different times and being in different time zones, all that stuff can throw people off. So travel is another big one. Another big one could be holidays or having family come to visit, because when you're around family, things can, your habits can fall back. So different things like that can get people off track. And it happens with everybody. No one's perfect. We just have to be aware of those things. And once we start dialing these new habits, it's really easy to get back on track. And that's the cool thing about this method is we can see when we fall off track really quickly. Whereas, if we're not even paying attention to it, we might not even realize till, 6 months later, oh my God, I haven't worked out in 6 months. You know?
Right. And just the way you're describing this, it sounds like it's just a matter of, do you want to wing it, or do you want to have a system, whatever that entails? And it sounds like, when people wing it, months might pass without them eating right, or months might pass without them exercising. But if they have some sort of written down plan, some sort of a schedule or a checklist, at least they can go back and say, okay, well, here's what I wrote down, here's what I was going to do. Does that match up with my actions? And it also sounds like by having some external coach like yourself, then when they fall off the wagon, so to speak, a little bit from a week of traveling, or a little bit in holidays, and they maybe feel some of the shame, the remorse, or what's the point of getting back on this? It sounds like by having that external coach to help them on is a way better way of going about this than trying to figure out themselves.
Yeah, it's really helpful to have someone to hold your hand or hold you accountable. And working in a group sometimes is a really good way for a lot of people to do it because, everyone's there to support each other. So we run group programs as well, and it's really successful when people do it together.
Awesome. Well, can you tell us about that? Can you tell us about like your group programs and your book, and anything else you want to mention here today?
Yeah, I'll be running my next program in a few weeks, and I have a group program that runs 10 weeks. And what we do is each week we focus on one of the different habits, like I was saying about sleep or exercise. And we do it as a group. We have weekly calls, and people can ask questions. And we also have one-on-one calls with everybody so we can see where everybody's at. And I run it every season. So 4 times a year we run the program. And yeah, it's actually just really fun to meet new people and talk to everybody and see where everybody's at. And as a physician, I've been a physician for 20 years now. I've seen it all. So I have a lot of experience with seeing, people fall off the wagon and needing help to get back on.
Okay, great. So people have kind of the best of everything, right? They have the person with the medical expertise to lead the group, but they also have their peers. And so, what are some of these websites? Where can people go to check out this group program, for example?
Yeah, everything can be found on my website, drmichelle.com. And I also offer free one-on-one coaching calls or health assessments for people. So if someone's not really sure if this is the right program for them, there's a button that they can click to have a free call with me, 20-minute call, and we can talk about what they're struggling with and see if it's a good fit.
Super great. And that is so drmichelle.com, and that is doctor spelled DR and Michelle with one L, right?
Right.
Okay, so drmichele.com to check out that health assessment, to do that one-on-one coaching call, and there's all kinds of great stuff there. There's a blog, there's a podcast, and then so the group program to join, that's the 10-week coaching program. Is that correct, or is that incorrect?
Yeah, that's right.
All right, cool. So drmichelle.com is the place to go to check out some of those health tips, some of those health instructions, to check out what Michele has, her podcast, what she's got going on, and then most importantly, that group coaching program. And so is there anything else people need to know about their health today, or anything they need to know going onto that website?
I just want to close with reminding people that you don't have to wait till January 1st to make changes. You could start making changes now, even though we're right before the holiday season. You start making little changes right now, take it in baby steps, and it's totally doable. And I have faith that everyone can make the changes that they want to make.
Awesome. Great advice. Don't wait till January 1st, because then what do you do if it's February 1st, if it's March 1st? Are you going to really wait 10 or 11 months for it to come back around? Why not make today the day that you start to make a change? I love it. Great message, great advice, lots of nuggets of wisdom for everyone to listen to today. And make sure to check out drmichelle.com to see all the things that you need to do to improve your health, improve your body, and to get everything in, I guess they call it, in harmony, in balance. And I definitely can have those days when, if there's a day when I, sleep in too late, it's like, oh, because I, stayed up too late. Or if there's a day when I'm just kind of the brain sluggish, I think, oh yeah, it's because I didn't have enough water this morning. Or if I'm irritable, cranky, I'm like, oh yeah, it's because I didn't exercise today. And those days when I make sure to stay on the plan, stay on the schedule, have the morning routine, have those good habits, and the day is set up for success. So everyone needs to know this information, especially if you're a work-at-home entrepreneur where your health is possibly more at risk than it might be even in an office job, when you have to get out of the house, you have to socialize with other people. It's a really slippery slope, really easy trap to fall into of working at home. Next thing you know, the sleep schedule's erratic, the health's erratic, the body's erratic, and then the productivity's out the window. So if you want to get back on track, you want to stay on track, you want to be your best self ever, and you should, then go right now to drmichelle.com, and I'd be really glad that you did. So thanks for stopping by the show today, Dr. Michele, and sharing all this cool stuff and giving us some new ideas, tips, tricks, strategies, all that fun stuff for being healthy again, feeling good again, and living the longest life possible and the healthiest life possible. So thanks for coming by and sharing that stuff.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for listening to today's program. Start from the beginning or view past episodes at marketeroftheday.com/episodes.